Welcome to Euronews Now. Here are the headlines. President Zelensky says Moscow faces strategic defeat in Ukraine as Russian forces appear to lose territory on several fronts in the east of the country. The first alleged war crime case begins in Ukraine as a Russian commander appears in court accused of killing a Ukrainian civilian. Stormont stalemate. What now for Northern Ireland as the Democratic Unionist Party blocks the election of a speaker, meaning the Assembly can't sit. And chaotic scenes in East Jerusalem as Israeli Defense Forces attacked mourners at the funeral of Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu Akleh. Hello and welcome to the programme. The Ukrainian army says it's gaining back territory in the east with reports from the front line of decisive victories against Russian forces. Kyiv says it's retaken villages close to Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv. It also reports wiping out an entire Russian battalion in the Donbass as Russian troops attempted a crossing of the Savitsky Donets River. President Zelensky says Moscow has embarrassed itself on the world stage and has already suffered a strategic defeat in the war.
Russia's strategic defeat is already obvious to everyone in the world, and even to those who still continue to communicate with it. Russia simply lacks courage to admit it so far. They are cowards, and they are trying to hide the truth behind missiles, air and artillery strikes. Therefore, our task is to fight until we achieve our goals in this war. Free our land, our people, and reliably ensure our security.
Following events on the ground is our correspondent, Sasha Vakalina. Earlier, she brought us through the main Ukrainian counter-offensives.
Well, let's start with the situation around Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Here, the Institute for the Study of War compared the situation to the one that we saw by the end of March around Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. They say that Kharkiv is starting to look very similar to the counteroffensive that ultimately drove Russian troops away from Kyiv. The UK Defense Ministry also said that they pulled back from Kharkiv. But when they're being pulled back from Kharkiv, they're being sent towards the east. And we're exactly to all that front line in the east with heavy fighting where it continues now for weeks, Paul. Russian forces may be abandoning efforts at wide encirclement of Ukrainian troops along the Izum-Slovyansk-Debaltseve line, because this is what they have been trying to do for weeks, but they could not succeed in that. Instead, they might be focusing in a shallower encirclement with smaller towns and Ukrainian forces there. But in order to do so, Russian troops, they had made 3 unsuccessful attempts to build those bridges that did not work. And according to the governor of Luhansk region, Ukrainian defenders beat back the Russians each time. Russia has not commented on anything that happened across that bridge on Seversky Donets, but we do know that according to the latest data by UK Defense Intelligence, Russian battalion lost almost all of its armored vehicles in the attempts to cross that river in eastern Ukraine.
And there's been more heavy fighting in and around Snake Island in the Black Sea. Why is that so strategically important for Russia?
Now, Snake Island is indeed a very small island that is located around 35 kilometers from the coast of Odessa and about 45 kilometers from the coast of NATO, from Romania in the Black Sea. This is the island that Russia took and occupied on the first day of the war. You might remember that epic accident and what happened there at the Snake Island. What's been happening ever since that Russia is trying to strengthen its force and to build up their forces. Why? Because they are trying to set up there the long-range air defense and resupply vessels. That would give Russia the control of the sea, land and air in the northwestern part of the Black Sea, and will also give them the possibility to attack and to shell the southern regions of Ukraine, including Odessa. What happened on Thursday is Russian Navy logistics vessel caught fire. Odessa Regional Military Administration said it was damaged by Ukrainian military. Russia has not commented on that yet. And also satellite footage by Maxar Technologies emerged showing Russian military ship that has sunk near the Snake Island, which was seized by Russia, of course, as we said, from the very, very early days of this war. Taking control of the Snake Island would give Russia so much control over that part of the Black Sea and also the possibility to shell the southern regions of Ukraine.
Elsewhere in the country, Russian forces have stepped up attacks to the south as Moscow looks to capture more of Ukraine's coastline. Our international correspondent Annalise Borges described the devastation that she had seen in the port city of Mykolaiv.
We went to the site of one of those attacks today in the city of Mykolaiv, where a residential area was hit. Actually, several residential areas in the city of Mykolaiv were hit over the last 24 hours. There's been a spike in shelling in that region. Mykolaiv, which is a port city, a very important coordination hub for Ukraine's war efforts here in the south of the country. There, civilian targets have been hit multiple times, including the headquarters of the regional government's administrations, where 36 people were killed back in March. Over the last 24 hours, once again, the shelling has intensified in that area. And we understand that Ukrainian soldiers to the east of Mykolaiv, east and south, that are trying to retake control of the city of Kherson, have been struggling. They have been able to maintain their positions, but they're not exactly making progress. And according to the governor of the province, that is because they are waiting for the gains made in the north and in the east of the country to be secured, to be consolidated, so that they can move forward and advance towards the east.
And President Zelensky has repeated his offer to sit down with President Putin to broker a peace deal. You've been speaking to Ukrainian troops. How do they see how the battle's going, and are they ready to make peace?
Well, the soldiers have been meeting here in Ukraine over the last almost 90 days now, say that they are, well, they're quite candid about just how much resentment they feel towards Russia. Most of them have had their lives upended. Many families have fled here. Some have lost loved ones, and they are quite adamant that this is a war about survival of themselves, but also of their country. One soldier told me yesterday, for example, that Russia no longer had the right to exist as a country, and that gives you an idea of just how much anger there is. Many of them do respect President Volodymyr Zelensky, and one would think that they would accept whatever decision is made to bring this war to a halt. However, many believe that the matters now should be settled in the battlefield, and President Zelensky knows that. He has repeatedly said that he is open to negotiate with Vladimir Putin, but whatever deal may be struck with Russia, well, the conditions of that deal will be put on a referendum so that Ukrainians vote and decide just how much they're willing to compromise for peace.
A Russian soldier appeared in a Kyiv court on Friday, marking the first time a member of the Russian military is facing war crime proceedings since the war began. He's accused of murdering a 62-year-old Ukrainian civilian during the opening weeks of the invasion. Richard Cady has more.
Vadim Shushumarin, a captured commander of a tank division, arrived at Kyiv's small district court wearing a grey tracksuit and handcuffs for a preliminary hearing. It is alleged that Shushumarin had been fighting in the Sumy region in northeast Ukraine when he shot a 62-year-old Ukrainian man in the head through an open car window in the northeastern village of Chupahivka during the war's first week. The crime is said to have happened a few meters from the victim's house and was committed using an AK-74 rifle. The victim's name has not been made public. The trial is important to Kyiv and comes as the number of crimes registered by Ukraine's general prosecutor surpassed 11,000, and UNICEF reported at least 100 children had been killed in the war in April alone. A date for the trial has been set for the 18th of May. Richard Cady, Euronews.
Now, the DUP has been strongly condemned for its refusal to form a government in Northern Ireland as it falls deeper into political crisis. The Nationalist Party, Sinn Féin, who emerged as the largest party in last week's elections, accused the Unionists of paralysing Stormont in failing to nominate a Speaker. But the DUP says it will not budge due to its concerns over the Northern Ireland Protocol, which leader Jeffrey Donaldson says poses a direct challenge to Northern Ireland. Newly elected members were supposed to meet on Friday for the inaugural day of the Assembly. From London, our reporter Vincent McAviney told us that political stalemate in Northern Ireland is leaving residents infuriated.
There was a bit of surprise that they wouldn't even allow for the election of a speaker. They'd already signalled that they wouldn't allow the formation of an executive over the protocol. And there is a lot of anger in Northern Ireland, not just from politicians, but from the general public about this, because once again, their assembly is not able to sit. Over the past 2 decades or so that it has been around, there have been many occasions, once as long as 3 years, where power sharing broke down and you had to have rule from Westminster. So people are angry that once again the politicians cannot get around the table. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has announced that he will be travelling to Northern Ireland on Monday for talks on this. But at the moment, the UK has said already this week that it's taken independent legal advice that it might unilaterally try to override some of the Northern Ireland Protocol in the Brexit deal. But the EU at the moment still holding firm, despite calls from the UK to be more flexible on the negotiations. At the moment, the EU position still seems to be that this is what was agreed and this is what you signed up for. You knew that putting a border, effectively a customs border in the Irish Sea, would have an impact on the unionist community and that this is what you agreed to.
And how have Northern Ireland's other political parties reacted to the DUP's refusal to nominate a Speaker? And is there any faith in that Westminster can broker a solution?
Well, there is a lot of anger across the political spectrum in Northern Ireland in the other parties at the fact that the DUP has decided to do this. It is anti-democratic. It comes just a week after a free and fair election. And there's also a little bit of suspicion amongst the public and some in the Catholic community and the parties that are aligned with the Republican sentiment in the DUP, because they never expected to lose control. For the last 2 decades, they've been the dominant party in the power sharing, the way it's set up. They have been the First Minister, and Sinn Féin has held the position of Deputy First Minister. But for now, this has finally flipped, and there is some suspicion that it's the fact that they cannot simply handle the fact that they are not in full power anymore, that they've only been paying lip service to power sharing, and that they're just simply not happy to take on that position of deputy leader, because the action they've taken today prevents Sinn Féin from taking over that First Minister position. So there is that suspicion there. In terms of hopes for how this can be resolved, well, a sign of how dire it's viewed across the Atlantic in the White House is a delegation now from the US Congress is coming, a high-profile delegation to the UK and to Northern Ireland in the next few days to try and have talks to resolve this, because there's genuine concern that any kind of disruption carrying on where there isn't power sharing going on with the Brexit protocol, there are angry discussions with the EU, that this could really heighten tensions. This is still a post-conflict society, a deeply divided society, and there had been, before Brexit, a lot of attempts to try and heal the cross-border wounds. Brexit has opened some of them up once again. You're moving into a sensitive time in the calendar as well. The summer, you see the marching season, the bonfire season in the Protestant community. And so there's real concern that this could be another blow to the peace process.
Do stay with us. We've got much more coming up after this short break.